Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mr. News Not Inktober anymore. Day after Inktober. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces. Today, I'm just looking over my calendar, the whole calendar, and I just kind of want to wrap my head around what just happened over the last 31 days, and I want to just sort of come at it from a fresh angle. It's been some time since I've looked at it, and I just want to analyze, study, regroup, think about what I could do differently, what I could do to improve, those kinds of things. So, for starters, I'll just go through the materials I used real quick. I used just some black India ink with brushes and pens, nib pens. I used that for a couple of times. Most of the time I did sketches with a mechanical pencil, and then I used this Copic multi-liner for any really fine line work. I used this Tombow calligraphy pen for any thicker line work or for detailed thick black, large black areas. And then anytime I needed to fill really larger black areas or get some really good texture, I used this Gassenfude, Copic Gassenfude, I'm probably saying that wrong, Gassenfude, I don't know, it's a brush tip. Very soft brush tip. And then I used an eraser as needed and used a white gel pen, Uniball Signo, for any white highlights on top. So those are the materials I used for this calendar. But let's focus in on day one and work our way through the whole calendar and just talk about one day at a time, and then come back and regroup with the whole calendar as a whole again. So for starters, day one, the prompt was, let me get my list again. The prompt was fish, so I drew a guy fishing. And, well, let's talk about that. The one thing, his legs look invisible. It looks like he doesn't have any legs. Other than that, I'm really pleased with this. One of the things that I found in doing this was having that white outline around that little corner of the fishing pole. It really, in my mind, that really sealed the deal on it. But then also having just the pure white of the water under the moon compared to the black of the waves around the edges, I really felt like this one really shined. I think a little bit of hatching with like the ultrafine point pen would have worked on his legs. And then, I don't know, maybe like the inside of the front half of the boat needs a little bit of hatching or cross hatching. But I don't know. I think it kind of does, just from a perspective standpoint. Like the inside, along this far edge of the boat, it would be in shadow because the moonlight's shining on the other side of it. And it would help make it stand out, contrast more against this white water. But I'm wondering if that might distract away from the fishing pole. I don't know. But I think if I were to do it again, I would put very minor hatching on his legs and a little bit of cross hatching on the back end of the boat and maybe the bottom. Try to get a little bit more detail in the front half of the boat there. Day two, the prompt was wisp, and so I drew some wispy wind, and I really love the way this turned out. I love how these little reeds are blowing in the wind. They're leaning over and all that. And I loved how it worked into the first picture. I loved how these top three came together, and that did that kind of thing several times. I love how the stipple on the sand worked with the texture of the waves and then the sky. Like it just all seemed to come together perfectly. I love how the stipple allowed some major highlights here, so the sand is really bright, reflecting that moonlight on some white sand. And then again, just like I did on day one, those little white rings around the overlapping reeds just brings your attention to those, which is important in this case because it's about the wind, right? The whole purpose of this illustration is about that wispy wind, and that brings your attention to that. So I don't think I would change much of anything except for maybe go back with the white gel pen around the edges, because there are a couple of places where that white outline didn't quite, it kind of got covered up a little bit in a couple of little places. Day 3, the prompt was bulky, and the only reason I even drew a lighthouse, I was just trying to make it match with these. Honestly, I made the lighthouse kind of fat because the word bulky, but really the only thing I was doing day 3 was going along with what I already had started. In hindsight, I probably should have put more thought into what that would have been, and it did not need to be a continuation of that seascape anymore. It could have, especially when compared to the rest of the calendar, it could have stood on its own ground if it was just like a picture of a buff dude at the gym, or if it was like a picture of just a large truck or something. I don't know, something bulky. It didn't have to fit. At the time, though, when the calendar was blank, it was really nice to have it fit. So, that's one of those hindsight things. All right, moving down to the second line here on day 4, the prompt was radio. And when I had drawn this, I forgot to draw the cast shadow under it. And then actually the following day, or maybe it was even on day 6, I can't remember, but I actually went back and added in that cast shadow later because it really needed it. And I'm so glad I did, because with that there, I don't think I would change any, maybe add some texture to the sort of wood slats under it, but even that, no, because that being so bright white contrasting against the top, which is all black, that works really nicely. And I think if I had gone in and added texture, like a wooden texture, then it would distract and it would make the wood down here too dark. I think this is flawless the way it is. I don't think there's anything about that picture that I would change, except maybe the hatching and cross hatching on the speaker grill could have been curved instead of straight to kind of make it show a curvature there, like it's bumping out. Other than that, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Day 5, blade. Here, this was one where that last minute hatching and cross hatching just really made it shine. One thing though that I kind of wish I would have done on this is I kind of wish that instead of trying to very carefully go, I wish I would have just filled the background black and then made a white gel pen outline for the outlines. That way they would have been more consistent, because you have gaps like here where it's a big gap and then on the other side it's a small gap, and that's kind of distracting. So I wish I could have gotten those gaps to be more consistent throughout. On day 6, the prompt was rodent, and I drew Remy from that Pixar movie. What's it called? Ratatouille. Yeah, that one. And at the time, I was really not pleased with it. I'm much more pleased with it now, looking back at it. It still doesn't quite, the face is off. The perspective of the face is off. I think the shape of the mouth is off. I think the eyes are not the right width, and I don't know. It just seems a little bit off to me. But taking aside the thought that it was Remy, from like just looking at the picture itself and not trying to compare it to Pixar's Ratatouille, I like it. The picture stands on its own. I like it the way it is. I like the way that the spoon goes with the rat. I like the way that the ears and the spoon and the nose and the eyes have those bright white patches that contrast so well. I love the texture of the fur. I love even the texture of the spoon shows that it's like a worn spoon, the way that the hatching on that worked out. And I love the way these whiskers, I came back in with the white gel pen to make those whiskers there. So I think that there's a lot going for it in this picture, and I don't think there's any part of it that I would change or do differently if I were to do it again. Moving across to day 7, the prompt there was fancy, and I mean, I just drew some fancy brushes, but I really liked the style. It was a nice break from the more textured style I had been doing, to have a, instead of hatching and cross hatching, just to have these pure white and pure black areas. It's a much more graphic pop, and I really enjoyed that, and I really want to do more of that because I really enjoy that style, and I had intended to do more of that and didn't do as much as I wanted to. Day 8, the prompt was teeth. And this is a monster that I've drawn before, but I've never drawn it to this level of detail. I think I talked about that on that day's video. I have drawn this monster, just a big fuzzball with a huge mouth and huge teeth and feet, no legs or anything, just feet and then eyes. I love the way he turned out with all that texture, with all that furry, with all the hair coming down over his eyes. I don't think I would change any part of that. Day 9, the prompt was catch. And the perspective is definitely awkward. Especially considering like the lights are all shining from behind and yet the highlight on the baseball is in the front. And why is the ground completely white and things like that? But then also the ball is a little lopsided. It's not perfectly round. And I think if I just ignored the background and just looked at the ball, I'm actually really pleased with the way that I did like the stitching and the way that I did the highlight and shadowing on the ball. I do wish that it was a little bit more round, more circular, but aside from that, that's fine. I'm not too pleased with the background. I think the perspective is awkward and weird and doesn't really work that effectively. But the ball I'm pretty proud of. Day 10, the prompt was hope, and I mean, the video where I made that, the message is clear. Hope. There's only so many ways that we can find hope in this world. There are so many more ways to lose hope than there are to find it. And I'm glad I had this chance to work my hope and my faith into this challenge. And visually speaking, I'm really pleased with that bright, shining, starish aura around the central cross. And the fact that that cross is white as compared to these darker, that clearly makes that stand out even more against the dark background, and there's a light shining out from it. But also keeping in mind that even the other men who were crucified with Jesus, even they ascended, or at least one of them did, right? But the point there being, even like Jesus on the cross had the hope because he knew that his dad was going to resurrect him and he'd be fine. These other guys, even they could find hope. Even they who didn't know that God was on their side and was going to save them, even they could find hope. And the visualization there with the outline, it does that for me. But also, it helps them stand out, and it tells the story, right? And I absolutely hate that I followed that hopeful illustration up with this disgusting one. Day 11, the prompt was disgusting, and with the, coronavirus stuff going on right now, I can't imagine much more gross and disgusting than people who fling their boogers and snot willy-nilly. I mean, I'm a teacher, so this is something I'm an elementary school teacher. If it weren't for the masks that the kids are wearing, I would see this. I mean, just on a normal school day, this is something you see all the time. And I mean, I don't see it now because of the masks that the kids are wearing, which is a good thing. Like, if there's one thing wearing a mask has done, it has stopped kids from picking noses, right? But yeah, I mean, just with what's going on in the world right now, picking your nose is about the grossest thing I could come up with at the time. Visually, though, I think if I were to do this again, I would shrink the head and see more of the face and more of the hand, because this almost doesn't read as a finger right here. So if we shrunk everything down and saw more of the hand and more of the face, that's what I would change on that picture. Day 12, the prompt was slippery, and I stand by that picture 100%. I love it. I can't wait until it's winter time and we can, have snow and stuff. But also, aside from just my love of snow and love of winter, just the visual here, just the simplicity, and the way that the stars are handled with, somewhere there's patches of stars and somewhere they're more spread out. And then the way the stipple in the snow makes it really bright and reflective. Even though there's not much of a moon, it's still really bright and reflective. And the contrast between foreground and background. And then moving on into day 13, again, I am 100% in love with this picture, because not just the way that it blends in, merges in with day 12, but just even standing alone as its own picture. I absolutely love the sand dunes, and again, the way that they're reflecting that moonlight. I love the wind blowing, and I love this little trail in the sand where this tumbleweed is going, and I love the texture of this cactus and the hatching and shading, and not shading, cross-hatching that gives the different value variations in there. And then seeing the two of those pictures together and the way they've got the vignette that wraps around the two, and it just, I don't have any criticism of either of those. I guess if I had one criticism, it would be the shadow. This guy should have a shadow. That's it. Other than that, nah. We're good. Maybe a little bit of a shadow here under this cactus, except that it's kind of on the more distant hill there, so not necessary. Day 14, the prompt was armor, and visually, I love each of those, but I mean, if you go back and you watch day 14, I had drawn 3 shields. One of them sucked, so I just covered it up. I really should have taken the time to make it not suck. I really should have taken the time, because visually just having those 2 is really unbalanced. If there was a 3rd smaller one here, it would be a lot more balanced. Or maybe even something other than a shield, maybe like a gauntlet or a helmet would have worked there. But as much as I do like these 2 shields, it needs something here to balance it. Day 15, the prompt was Outpost, and I was kind of going with this like fort theme with like a little fire pit in the middle of it, and like a little armor or weapon rack, and then little stairs going up to the wall where you could get up to the, you know, a little gate. And by itself, that stands alone pretty darn well. And the way that it merged into this rocket, I don't know. Like the prompt for day 16 was rocket, and so I drew a rocket, and I like that picture by itself, and I like that picture by itself, but the 2 together, they clash. I'll just be honest, they clash. They do. Moving on to day 17. Oh, also with day 16, oh, there's a truck or something out there. With day 16, there's no shadow on that rocket. That rocket should be casting a long shadow that goes all the way out into the ocean here if we're staying consistent with the rest of the shading, the shadows and stuff. Day 17, the prompt was Storm. I think what I really should have done for day 17 is I should have used my little cups where I had mixed up different inks, although I don't think I had done it yet by that point. I don't think I did that until day 20. I should have done that here so that I would have had more variety in my values, because like clouds that are strictly black and strictly white without any gray area in between don't really look like clouds. So I wish that I would have done more value variation there, or done hatching or cross hatching or something instead of just black and like just pure white. Day 18, the prompt was Trap, and I love the way that the texture of the wood turned out. I love the way that the texture of the wall turned out. This little mouse hiding back here I'm really pleased with, although it is kind of cartoony and weird. Maybe it'd be better if I could see a little bit of an outline of an silhouette of a figure of the mouse in there. Also, it kind of looks a little rabbity to me for some reason. I did later, after the fact, go back in and add hatching and cross hatching underneath to show the shadow of this wire, the snap part of the trap, and that made a huge difference. That wasn't there before. Day 19, the prompt was Dizzy, and that was the day I think my camera completely failed. But aside from camera troubles, the picture itself, I think the only thing I might wanted to change and do differently is to make it a spiral instead of just concentric circles. Although it almost, especially if you move your head around while you're looking at it, it almost looks like a spiral anyway. Even though it's not, it's just concentric circles. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that is getting the optical illusion effect, and it is definitely making me dizzy looking at it. Yeah, okay. So it's effective. But I absolutely love the value changes, the hatching and cross hatching, and how it looks three-dimensional and looks wiggly wobbly and all that. I think that turned out fun and enjoyable. Number 20, the prompt was Coral, and I think that was the day where I made my different cups of different values of ink, where I was mixing water and ink, and that turned out fantastic. I really like the way that gave some variation into the water and into the different depths of little stuff. I don't think there's a whole lot of coral in this picture, though. I mean, there's little bits, but there's mostly like seaweed and rocks and stuff. But as far as an underwater scene made in inks, I'm pretty pleased with that. I think I would want to see it with color, though. For something like that, I want to see it with color. Day 21, the prompt was sleep, and I drew a bunch of Z's thinking it would be fast, and it wasn't. Visually, what do I think visually? I think I need more variety. I think the fact that all the Z's are pretty much the same, like I think if I had done different letter styles of Z's, that would have made this much more interesting. Day 22, the prompt was chef, and I don't know, I'm kind of not pleased with the way that turned out. I mean, I guess by itself, the one thing I really don't like about it is I didn't have enough space in the wall behind to really make the tile look like tile. Like what I was going for is like a tile backsplash, but it doesn't get that effect. Also, I think more detail is needed on the front panel there with the knobs and stuff. And I don't know. I think it definitely needs more contrast, but I think just conceptually, I was having trouble that day trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. Day 23, the prompt was rip, and I had a bunch of fun pretending I was ripping up my whole Inktober challenge. But for real though, just that picture of a ripped page, like, I like the fact that it looks frayed. I like the fact that, you know, the hatching and cross-hatching in that rip area makes it look frayed, like the fibers of the paper were splitting out as it was ripping, which is something that actually does happen. You know, you look at a ripped paper and it's not a clean line, right? I also like the way that, you know, as it's being torn, the direction of the page turns a little. I think I should have overemphasized that a little more. Maybe I should have drawn the hands doing the tearing since it's not completely torn, like make it like the picture was snapped halfway through the tear. I don't know. Or maybe I should have drawn a whole page instead of just like close-up of something like that. Day 24, the prompt was dig, and I actually really like the way that shovel turned out. I kind of want to see it with a white outline around it, but at the same time I kind of don't. I mean, it stands out enough. It's really pale, so it stands out enough against the black background without having a white border. So, I don't know. I kind of wish I had done more to make the shovel look weathered, at least down here. Like the handle kind of looks a little weathered because of the hatching and cross-hatching, but the actual, you know, metal shovel part is pretty much just a shovel. So I wish I would have done more to make that look weathered. Moving down into the last week here, some of my best work and some of my worst work this Inktober. On day 25, I drew Incrediboy from The Incredibles because Mr. Incredible kept calling him Buddy, and the prompt for day 25 was Buddy. The perspective is off. This shoulder should be wider, and this shoulder should not be as wide. And because of the way I did the hatching on the face, I really wish I had done that with the different inks, the different mixed watered down inks. I should have done it with that for his face. I liked the way the hatching and cross hatching turned out for his shirt and for his hair, but not for his face. Day 26, I apologize. I'm sorry. The prompt was hide, and I didn't have any time that day, so I just filled the whole thing black, and I should have actually drawn something. I'm sorry. Day 27, I love the way that guitar turned out, although I think more hatchy stuff is necessary, or more valuation is necessary because it's just pure white. Day 28, I was so pleased with that drawing. I still am. I absolutely love the way this root beer float turned out. Like, that right there, if I ran a restaurant that sold root beer floats, I would put that on the menu right there. I love this picture. I just love it. The prompt for day 28 was float, and so some of the things that I did is I did the fluffy whipped cream texture. I did the stipple where the like bubbles of soda are coming up into the ice cream. I made the soda at the bottom darker and the top half of the cup lighter where the ice cream is. The spoon next to it, the overlapping with that, the table, and it just pops, and I absolutely love with the dark outlines. And the shape of the glass and everything is just, it screams like 1950s to me, like going to a diner in the 1950s or something. Like, that's what that screams to me. Day 29, the prompt was shoes. I have had Christmas on my mind lately, even though it's nowhere close to Christmas time yet, because it's been getting cold for some nights, and Christmas is my favorite time of year. So I drew some elf shoes, and I think the ink look, the hatching and cross-hatching look here, almost makes it feel kind of Tim Burton-ish. It almost makes it feel kind of Nightmare Before Christmas-ish, which is kind of cool because I liked that movie, but at the same time, it's not what I was going for. I kind of wanted it to be more whimsical and fun instead of creepy-looking elf shoes. But hey, you know, it's Halloween, so it's like, you know, fine, sure. Maybe this isn't a Christmas picture, it's a Halloween picture where somebody dressed up as an elf for Halloween, for their Halloween costume. I don't know. If I were to change it, I probably would have used color. I would have used my Copic markers, color, like green boots and red and green striped, or red and white striped leggings, golden bells, that kind of stuff. Day 30, I love the way that this pumpkin jack-o'-lantern turned out. The prompt was what, creepy? No, ominous. Ominous was the prompt for that. And yeah, that's pretty ominous. It's kind of creepy looking. The only thing that I think I would change for this picture is I would put like a yellow glow in the holes that are cut out. And just let that be the only color. I wouldn't even color the whole thing, just that yellow glow coming out of those eyes and nose and mouth holes. That's the only thing I would change. Day 31, that spider, the prompt was crawl. That spider, I mixed a bunch of thoughts. I did use the watered down inks for a little bit of a wash, and I also did some of the really graphic look with big, large, completely black areas, but then I also did some of the hatching and cross hatching, and I think it came out pretty darn nicely. I like that there's like a different style between the spider and the web behind it, and so that kind of brings out, you know, a contrast there, which makes the spider pop. And so yeah, I'm actually really pleased. I thought that was a nice strong ending to my Inktober. And what about the calendar as a whole? Well, this one right here stands out as not really fitting with anything. Part of that because it's so up close, where most of these are more distant kind of things. And like even this Remy is a zoomed in, but it's not that far zoomed in. So there's a lot of reasons why this one just stands out as being not cohesive with the rest, not unified with the rest. Same with number 22, and I think just partly because of how pasty white the whole thing is. It's low contrast, like I said about that, is so much white space. But also, like this one fits, even though there's so much white space. So is it really the white space, or is it the lack of detail on the bottom and the terrible detail on the top? I'm not sure. It just feels a little out of place. Come to think of it, I will have to say, day number 28, as much as I love this picture, because of how much dark there is in the whole rest, like everything is super dark, this does feel a little out of place. If I wanted it to feel more like it belonged with the rest of the calendar, then a black wall and then a white outline around the top would be an appropriate way to kind of merge it into the rest. And then the same with the elf shoes, maybe make it a black floor or else a black wall, one or the other. And maybe with, I think what really is bothering me about this one is when you see a stovetop that's like this, one of those flat top stoves, it's like black. So, and this is white. So that's probably what's really bothering me about that. But yeah, I think just as far as cohesiveness of the whole calendar, these three here and this one here, just the fact that there's so much white space in those, they don't fit with the rest of the calendar. Other than that, I think everything works pretty well. And this day 26 hide actually works, even though there's nothing there. It actually worked pretty well with the whole calendar, with the calendar as a whole. I'm really pleased with this, and I really think, more than anything, I'm pleased with the fact that I did it, the fact that I finished the whole year, and I think it's time to hang it up on the wall next to last year's Inktober and see what they look like side by side. But that's for another day. I don't have time to do that right now. So maybe I'll upload that picture to my website or my Instagram when I've got it ready. Now, even though Inktober is finished for this year, I will do it again next year. And I've also got a couple series, like 5 series of art lessons for elementary level students. If you're interested in checking those out, they come out one a day on weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade in that order. And that'll be every week from now until Christmas break at the very least. Although I won't be putting those up during the week of Thanksgiving break. Anyway, yeah, just weekly lessons for first grade, second grade, third, fourth, and fifth. And I've heard from some people that are doing these at home and saying they're following along with multiple grade levels, even though they're like in 6th or 8th grade or something like that. So that's totally fine if you're not in the grade level of the projects you want to follow along with, or if you just want to jump around and see what's available. Whichever, either way, I hope to see your smiling face again. Thanks for joining us.